I am Maija Blafield. I'm a visual artist and also filmmaker, and I'm invited here to speak about context. And when thinking of context, considering my work, I think of two things. How something being in context or out of context can be used as material for an artwork. And another thing is how the context affects my work in practical ways and on practical level. And I will begin shortly with the latter one. Although I am an art professional, when I look at art as a viewer, I don't really think of context at all. I really try to maintain the audience perspective and look at it from the subjective point of view. Like, do I like this? And does this touch me? And so on. And then the context is of course not important. But when making art, the importance of context can't be really avoided. And in my case, my works are shown both in the context of visual arts, like in art museum or gallery context, or in film and television context as documentary films and so on. And this has an effect on how my work is seen and interpreted and also funded. And it also has an effect on the conditions, how the work is presented and looked at. And it's interesting because the work itself is not necessarily different in this context. I make moving image films, short films, which can be presented in the context of contemporary art. And these very same artworks can be broadcasted on TV or screened at film festivals and other screenings. And often the work itself is completely same in both of these contexts, and but it's really interpreted differently depending on the context. We very easily might think that the context of contemporary art is somehow more free when it comes to the creative possibilities compared to the one of cinema or television, for instance. Actually, I think this freedom creates a lot of challenges when it comes to how the work is experienced by the audience. As an example, there is an exhibition space in an art museum or gallery where a film is screened at. The audience can walk in and out of the artwork as they please. This makes the circumstances of watching the film rather challenging because the film can actually start wherever and they make noise and whatever can happen. And when showing a film in such conditions, a filmmaker must constantly convince the audience to stay watching the film. And this has an effect on what you can show in such setting. So it actually, I don't see that so much of creating freedom for expression. Another problem with the freedom is that the audience has no clue what to expect when entering the exhibition room. And what follows is that when entering the exhibition room, they don't necessarily know if the work is, for instance, an abstract installation, like a living sculpture or something, or is it a narrative film with a story. And I give an example. If you have a narrative film with a story and you have a several minute scene with just a landscape, nothing happens for 2.5 minutes, and you have this scene in the middle of the film. And in an exhibition context, the audience enter the space during this scene, and they can easily misinterpret and think that the whole work is just the landscape, and then they watch it for a minute and then they leave and then they miss the whole film. But in a cinema, screening, for instance, this will not happen because although the format of showing the work is much more strict, it's always the same. There is seats and there is screen and you sit quiet and that's it. But still, I think it gives more freedom because when the audience, they buy ticket and they come and sit in there on their seat, they will be quite patient and really give up and leave their seat, even if they feel that watching is challenging. And then you can easily challenge the patience of the audience quite a lot before they escape your film screening. And so, yeah. And this is something, actually, it can be really used as a benefit, but it can be also a problem if you don't consider it. And I also think that some kind of limits are always good for creative work. When your audience has some sort of expectations created by the context of what's going to be screened, there is also a possibility for you as an artist to be out of the context, to surprise them. And you can use this as a tool. But in a context where everything is possible and just about anything can be expected, like in contemporary art context, for instance, it's much more difficult to surprise the audience. So kind of more traditional screening setting can be actually more creative. And for instance, in Finland, we have even in national TV, we have a slot for experimental film. And I think for an artist, this is really nice opportunity. You can screen your work and whoever coincidentally puts a TV on and can watch it without expectations. I think it's very different setting when they are buying a ticket to an art museum and going to see art. But I will get back to the beginning on how being in context or out of the context can be used as material for an artwork. And I will show you some photos. Just a second, I'll try to manage to do this. Little moment. Yeah. I give a little introduction. I work with moving image, but also photography, and for instance, and I showed you some pictures. They are all from different photo series during different years, and but they all have same idea behind them. And that's to be out of the original context and then that way becoming something else. These photos are about seeing things a little bit differently, which is, I think, what the experience of beauty in everyday life is often all about. And I once wrote about the photos, a little text, I can read it to you. These photos are glimpses, visions, and revelations. They are observations of another reality which is revealed momentarily to the lucky viewer or observer in the midst of some mundane aesthetic environment, glimpsed in a shopping center or asphalted street, on a motorsports park or a landfill. And so the photos are actually really about really ugly things, mostly about trash or some wasteland landscapes. But I personally think that they are extremely beautiful. So let's have a look a little bit. I can tell you a little bit what's behind. For instance, this photo I once took in it's a place where people can go and buy a ticket. And there is a little road, which is a circle, and then you can drive with a car as fast as you want. And they just go like this. And there was a wall of some barrack style of a building, and some oil had been spilled on the window, and there I took the beautiful landscape photo. And here, this is, it's a pity the projection is not so very good, but this is actually, yeah, very disgusting, but I think it is beautiful. There is, and there is even a petal of a flower here. And it was just, I saw it once on a street while passing by. So I hope you can somehow see it with this projection. And some trash on the side of a road. Actually, this place is the closest place where you can get to a place called Trinity Site, which is a place where the first atom bomb was exploded, the first atom bomb test, and the area is closed, but this is the closest point you can get. It's just some trash, and found it quite beautiful, independent on this sad context. Some little forest. Mystical space just on the street. There was actually a fire, a house was in fire nearby, which is of course sad, but then you look a little bit on the side that there was the beautiful smoke in the forest. So, maybe with this screening you can't, but it's a window. Some trash on snow, some oil, rainbow again. This was just on the street. Was a pyramid in Frankfurt backyard. And this is, it was a metal workshop, and they had been sawing some metal pieces so that the dust of the metal was around on the street, and it looked like glitter, and yeah, it's very nice. And here, for instance, this is actually a starting point for one short documentary I made about Frankfurt years ago. I coincidentally saw this at night. Somebody had carried trash on the street corner, and as you see, there is a gravestone. And I started to imagine that, okay, of course I know there is nobody buried there in the corner of this street. In reality, it's just trash put there, but then I started to imagine if it really was somebody's grave, how it is you are dead 100 years ago, and if you have been buried there, you are never alone, like in a graveyard, because there is life is passing by you all the time. But then when you're dead, you don't really understand the contemporary life anymore, and you are out of context, and you start to misinterpret your the surroundings. And so I made a little short film about this from this point of view, and the starting point was this coincidence of seeing this pile of trash one night. And I had got lost, and that's why I happened to see this. And also here, I think it's very beautiful, but it's trash. It's a wasteland spot. There is sometimes this undramatical spots in nature can be the best part, I think. Somebody has created a little nature. This is actually abandoned military base in Estonia, ex-Soviet Union military base, but some soldier has made some nice decoration there. This shopping window from New York changes very much. Some broken furniture. Also trash. This is actually in China after the New Year celebrations, and although it's trash, I think it was the best part of the fireworks. It's so beautiful, like petals of flower. Of course, it's trash. Yeah. shopping window has changed to be a museum. It's actually in downtown New York. It's interesting. It can be empty. It's rents. And here, a famous photograph of Afghan girl has changed because it was in a shopping window of a bookstore, which really looked like it was abandoned, but actually it was sometimes open, but the owner was just very old, and he had never changed the window for years. And all of us, we know the original photo, but here it has really changed to something else. It tells about the history of this area there where the shopping, where the bookstore is, and it's completely different meaning now. And there was some, I think there was like advertisement posters on a metro station, and then they had been sandpapered so that the new advertisement will be glued on and it becomes an abstract artwork. Yeah, this oil on water in a city area also becomes really aesthetical vision, although it's pretty ugly. And there is a paper of Snickers chocolate also, but you can't really see it. And this is from Viking Line boat, actually the cheapest possible category of the cabins down there. And for me, it was like a scene from Twin Peaks, a mystical environment. Very different. Somebody's little summer trip. And also, yeah, view from window changing when you don't look to the landscape, but the scratches and dust on the window. But the screening, the projection quality is not maybe good enough for this to see. So this is from it's an agricultural building, but it somehow changed to look really from another reality when everything else is framed off. A little bit of nature, fancy car, and this is it's mold in a wall of abandoned building, but yeah, when you look at it like this, it is beautiful. Yeah. So I just look how much I'm not talking too much. How much I have used my time. Yeah. I can shortly show you a few video clips. I see I'm talking a bit too much, but as an example of taking things from the original context and then creating something completely different, I can show a little piece of what happened. Okay, this is a short. I show a little clip of a short film called Golden Age. I made a few years ago.
Olen tähän mennessä katsonut läpi 116 tuntia, 41 minuuttia, 12 sekuntia ja 3 freimiä videokuvaa, ja haluan nyt näyttää sinulle tämän. Se on silleen, että Jokainen tietää kaiken. Ihan kaiken. Mutta halut, toiveet ja pelko haittavat sen tiedon näkemistä. Niin se vaan on. Sellaista se on.
During 15 years of time, I filmed documentary footage with just a home video camera or like some snapshot pocket camera or mobile phone or something like this. During 15 years of time, and I did not watch the footage. I just put the material always in a box. And because I was interested what happens when I forget the original moment of recording and somehow I will be out of the original context and maybe I will see the meaning in the footage differently. And I was also interested how the memory works. Like normally we record and take photographs because we want to remember, but sometimes, quite often, I think it actually prevents us from remembering as well and changes our memories. So I had a lot of footage, just all kind of random documentary stuff I had filmed during that time. And then after 15 years, I opened the box and started to go through. So some of the material was really recent and some was 15 years old. And in the film, I didn't use any original sound. All the dialogue is dubbed. And as you noticed, I'm speaking the dialogue again. And so it's a documentary about memory. So I'm placing all kind of like some other dialogue from another memory or some I had saved some little written notes during these years and all kind of sources from that same period of time. And I kind of mixed these memories up. I took a dialogue from another scene and put it to another, place it in another documentary sequence. And this film, if you are interested, it will be broadcasted on Wiley Teema television on Monday. It's coming 4:50 p.m. Monday, 18th of December from Yle Teema, but it's also in Yle Areena. It's Kulta-aika in Finnish. And now I think we're running out of time, but I show another video clip also. Just a second. I can end this here. It's about 2.5 minutes. Let's have a look at this. I can explain then later what it is.
Luin kerran, että sienillä voi olla tuhansia eri sukupuolia ja että pariutuessaan heillä on 2 sukupuolen sijaan loputtomasti valinnanvaraa ja kaikki eri sukupuolet voivat paritella keskenään monimutkaisessa lisääntymisprosessissa, jossa jokainen sieni säilyttää identiteettinsä. Lisääntymisprosessi vapauttaa ympäristöönsä itiöitä. Ne matkustavat ilman ja veden mukana pystymättä itse vaikuttamaan siihen, millaisiin kasvuolosuhteisiin ne päätyvät. Otollisessa ympäristössä itiö kasvaa uudeksi sieniyksilöksi. Sienet ovat lahottajia ja imevät ravinnokseen hajottamaansa puuainesta.
This scene is filmed in the house which used to be a summer house of me and friends of mine. We used to rent it for several summers years ago. And now the house is abandoned and, as you can see, in very bad condition. Actually, there is so much mold that you can't be inside without protective clothing. So the humans cannot anymore, no longer live there. But the scene is based on, like, I wanted to look at this very important and dear building from the point of view of some other species, like maybe in different contexts, it's actually a really good place. And for mushrooms, yes, the conditions for life are very different than for humans. And also I wanted to look at mushrooms, fungi, from humanizing point of view, because we are humans and this is the way how we normally look at other species. So the reproductive process of mushrooms is here regarded as sex. And so it's a sex scene of mushrooms in the old house. And if you're interested to see the whole film, this film is about half an hour long, and it's at the moment exhibited in Kiasma Museum in Ars Fennica exhibition, and it's called On Destruction and Preservation. It's a documentary, experimental documentary film with 6 totally separate stories, so this is one of them. The exhibition is still open until mid-February.